Welcome to Motorcycle Hang Time with Chris Klotz, attorney at Stevenson Klotz Injury Lawyers. We invite you to hang with us as we talk about the local motorcycle scene, safety issues, and motorcycle law. And now, here's your fellow motorcycle rider and enthusiast and host.
Hey there, this is Chris Klotz with Motorcycle Hang Time. I'm one of the attorneys at Stevenson Klotz Law Firm here in Pensacola, Florida. We've got offices in Mobile, and we are here today with a very special guest. Welcome, Vicky Sanfilippo. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I mean, for the fact that I'm in Wisconsin and it's winter, I don't get to enjoy the beautiful weather you do and the chance to get out and ride. But anyway, I'm doing good.
Have y'all got any snow on the ground right now?
We don't. It's very strange that we have no snow on the ground for January. It's been running in the 40s for the most part. It's very, very odd.
Well, cool. So, Vicky, thank you so much for joining us today on Motorcycle Hang Time. I want to just kind of talk a little bit about who you are and your background and also about your organization and kind of let our viewers know a little bit about what you do, which is amazing. For those of y'all watching, Vicky was just down here a couple of weeks ago, and we did a training course that we'll talk about in a lot more detail. But tell us who you are, Vicky. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm a nurse. I think that's probably the thing people know me for. Registered nurse, and worked in hospital settings for about 25 years, and then quit my job in 2010 so I could concentrate full time on a real passion of mine, and that's teaching motorcyclists what to do at the scene of a crash until professional help arrives. So that has really taken off, and it was something I felt very passionate about and had put together back in 1996 so I could teach people what to do at the scene of a crash.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a second, because that actually in and of itself is a completely cool thing that you worked for almost 25 years or 20 years or so in an actual clinic facility setting, ICUs and critical care units and things like that. And you had a calling that took you out of mainstream work and got you to open your own business. That takes a huge, huge amount of courage.
Yeah, it was tended for some years while I still had a job that actually supported my motorcycle habit and all that stuff, and my children. But it was I graduated from nursing school in 1984, and in 1987 I bought my first motorcycle. So as a motorcyclist who was a nurse, I always had my friends saying, "Thank God we have a nurse with us. If something happens, you'll know what to do." And whenever they said that to me, I kind of felt uncomfortable. I was like, "Are you kidding? You think I learned motorcycle trauma in nursing school? I mean, I probably know more about you than you about medicine, but it's more of a combat medic situation when something happens alongside the road." So I worked as hard as I could to figure out what it was that I would do to help somebody. And then once I got it all figured out, I got concerned about my friends and what are my friends going to do to help me if I'm the only one who knows?
Yeah, I bet you didn't have any motorcycle specific training in any of the nursing school or any of the education that you had. Tell me a little bit about where in the educational process there's some gaps that you fill in with what you do.
Yeah, as a nurse, we learned controlled medicine. The people were brought to us already. So we had warm blankets and IVs, and we could send them to surgery. We could draw labs. We had a team of people. Alongside the road, you have limited supplies. Oftentimes it's just you or maybe one other person who's there that can help take care of that person. So that was really the big disconnect. And in nursing school, they don't teach helmet removal. They talk about jaw thrust rescue breathing, but they don't really teach it well. Like you're not good at it. They don't tell you how to move somebody off of a road if that person is injured and can't get out of the road. We don't do emergency tourniquets, not in the hospital. In the hospital, you've got much more controlled situation.
Yeah. So did your husband think you were crazy when you told him that you wanted to? I want to quit my job and open accident scene management. What do you have to
Yeah, I
say
came
about
home
that?
one day, I was like, I was pretty far into this because I had started teaching this in 1997 and it was 2010 by the time I came home one day and said to my husband, I said, he goes, what's wrong? And I said, what, I just wish I could just focus on accident scene management. It's so hard for me to go to work and then come home and try to do this too. And my passion is really for the teaching and the motorcyclists. And I says, I'm thinking about quitting my job. And I was really surprised at his response. He goes, do you think we could make it? And because that's a pretty big step,
Heck yeah, that's
And
a
I
huge
said,
step.
I think I could. I won't know unless we try it. And he goes, okay, give it a whirl. He says, you can always go back to nursing. And I had spent 25 years of hospital nursing. So I had a pretty good background. I was educator for Department of Surgery at that point. So I took that step back and I volunteered full time for accident scene management from 1997 all the way until just 3 months ago. I finally started to pay myself a little something. So I've been a full-time volunteer for the organization for all of those years. So
Yeah. So tell the audience a little bit about the different entities that you're involved with. I know that accident scene management is part of what you teach, and you have an organization called Road Guardians. How do those two fit together?
Well, accident scene management, every time you'd say the word accident, people would kind of step back and go, no, not me. And so I was talking with a marketing guy about that in 2010, when I was going full headlong into this. And he said, if you had a social program, if you had some way to connect to your students after their training, that would be a good thing. And it wouldn't have to be called accident scene management. So I worked with him and another guy to create the Road Guardians logo. Here, I'll just kind of show you. So that kind of shows you how those two organizations work together. And Road Guardians is accident scene management's social program. ASM is a nonprofit organization, and Road Guardians helps fund that organization.
Gotcha.
It's $20 a year to be a member. And so it's kind of a easy, just flip us a 20. It'll help our organization, and we'll give you a really cool patch.
You want to give a shout out real quick on how they can contact you? Is there a website associated with Road Guardians they can check out?
Sure, roadguardians.org. And don't worry if you can't remember if there's an S at the end. We own them all. Our Road Guardians. That will take you to the website where you can become a member. You can sign up for our free e-news that comes out once a month. You can look for classes, see if there's an instructor close to you. We even have a tab that's for safety related items. So if you're a road captain or safety officer and you're looking for some articles that you could share with your group, you can find a lot of information on our site, roadguardians.org.
So you just came down here to Pensacola and taught a couple of different classes. Can you tell us a little bit about what the difference is between the two classes that you came down here and helped us with?
Yeah, it was really cool to be able to do those two classes on one weekend. That is the best way for people to learn. On the first day, which it's not required that you take both days in a row. It's just the best way to do it. So on the first day, they got the nickname Basic, but the actual name of the course is a crash course for the motorcyclist. And what it does is teach you how to react in that first 5 to 20 minutes after a crash occurs until the professional help arrives. There's always going to be a gap in time between when the event occurs and when the professionals get there. So the things that we do in that amount of time can make a huge difference. A person can die within 5 minutes if you don't do the right things and get the bleeding stopped and initiate some rescue breathing for them.
And so we did that course on, we took a Saturday and we did the basic course. And then what was the next class that we did on Sunday?
So the basic class was a full 8-hour long day. And then the next day is another 8-hour day. And in that class, you learn how to be a better assistant to the EMS. You learn some advanced skills such as oral airway insertion. If somebody has facial trauma, that's an important skill to learn. We learned about roadside medical concerns because everything that happens isn't a crash. So we wanted to make sure we hit 4 common roadside medical concerns, and learned EpiPens, learned how to do chest compressions only, so quite a bit of stuff in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we put all the PowerPoint gets put away, and we do hands-on skills all afternoon. We learn how to assist the EMS with extrication and do a handoff to the EMS. We learn how to do femoral traction. We did role play, which I think was some of everybody's favorite stuff to do.
That was a lot of fun. That was a ton of fun.
Yeah. So we would we'd have somebody act out an injury. The other people didn't know what it was, so we kind of secretly told them what they were supposed to do. And then we had a group of people with a trauma pack that had to rescue that person, do all the right things, whether that be taking a helmet off, rolling the person over, different skills. And then we would talk about it, and we would, and I know I was a fabulous victim.
Yes, you were. You were an awesome victim.
Academy Award. So anyway,
I had the easiest victim part in that role. I was the one who was completely passed out and non-responsive. Other people had to remember where their injuries were. I just had to lay there with a helmet on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
There are almost 9 million motorcycles registered in the United States, and there are almost 5,000 motorcycle fatalities a year. That's almost 14 a day. Motorists don't do a good job looking out for motorcycles, and neither do insurance companies. Hi, I'm Chris Klotz, and as a writer and an attorney, I know that insurance companies treat motorcycle cases differently. If you've been injured in a motorcycle accident, bring your case to me to review. Let me take my writing experience and my knowledge of how to deal with insurance companies to get you the compensation that you deserve. The call and the advice during the call are free. Stevenson Klotz Injury Lawyers, bring it. So what I want to ask you was I've gone through the basic course. I think weekend before last was probably the 3rd time that I've been through the basic course. And every time that I go through the basic course, I learn something new. And I'm so grateful for what you and your teachers, bring to us and bring to the table for somebody who is, a casual rider. I haven't had really any first aid training since I was a lifeguard in high school, and I learned how to do CPR, and that was, pretty much the extent of my first aid training. But one thing that I really took away, and I know that you can't get completely into it in this segment, but one thing that I took away is that obviously you have to protect somebody's spine and neck, but in certain circumstances, one of the things that your course teaches is how to best remove a helmet in a situation where somebody has stopped breathing, and just that actually can be done in a way that protects the neck. And just, can you talk to us a little bit about that? And
sure.
How did that?
I think they get almost too worried about movement. They've been most times people have been told never move anybody, and they're kind of frightened about even touching somebody or potentially having to move them. So I look at it this way. A lot of people are like, oh, I know CPR, so I know how to help if somebody really needs my help. In a motorcycle crash, CPR done on a crash victim has about a 1% chance of survival. If you're worried about taking a helmet off, what are you going to do when the helmet does come off? A head tilt chin lift and then start pressing on their chest? So that's, you have to have some common sense about the things that you do. And we teach people how to remove a helmet so that they can learn how to take it off with as little movement as possible of the neck. So we want to do that responsibly. And that's why it's real important for people to learn that ahead of time and practice the skill, not just see somebody do it, because it's very different when you go to do it yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, isn't it? I mean, that's where you learn.
It's scary because you know that, you've got to give somebody an airway, and you've got to sometimes breathe for someone who is not able to breathe. And, sometimes you just don't have an option. And being able to have a skill set on how to get a helmet off without causing further damage just really gave me a great degree of peace, and knowing that I wouldn't cause any more damage, than necessary, in being able to give somebody, breathing if they've stopped breathing. So that skill set's just amazing. And I didn't even know before I took the course that was even something that would be an option to do before EMTs got there.
Right. There's always that thought that, all of the EMTs are trained on helmet removal as well. They may have seen it. They may have heard, had it demonstrated or something at some point in their training years ago. But I think by the time they get there, a lot of that stuff should have been taken care of already.
Yeah.
If you are just going to stand there and wait for them to come, it may be too late. So it's an early skill and something we all should know how to do. And then once you get the helmet off, you learn another way of opening up an airway called jaw thrust, where you pull the jaw forward and that opens up the airway so you don't have to do a head tilt chin lift. Yeah. There's no point in taking the helmet off carefully, and then doing a head tilt chin lift. There's, it's too much movement of the neck, and the chances that person isn't breathing because of neck injury is very real.
Yeah, that's another skill that I didn't have, because when I was in high school and I got taught CPR as a lifeguard, all you did was the head tilt chin lift. Never heard any discussion about the jaw thrust, and being as a way to be able to open somebody's airway. So that was a pretty big revelation for me as well. So just really grateful for that. Well, let's not be completely serious. I want to talk about some fun stuff about you and your background. I know that you have been a sport rider with the motorcycle Cannonball. Can you tell us a little bit about that ride and your part in that?
Yeah, the motorcycle Cannonball. Those are antique motorcycles. They are 90 years old and older. So yes, their kickstart, some of them just, don't have a lot of power. They can get up to 50 or 60 miles per hour if they're going down a steep hill. But when they're going up a hill, they're lucky if they can make it without getting off and having to push the bike, So these crazy motorcyclists, they do a ride every other year, going from coast to coast. The first one I did was from Daytona, Florida to Tacoma, Washington. The second one was from the boardwalk in New Jersey to Carlsbad, California. So now, just in case you think I'm riding an old bike, I'm not. Actually, I get to be the medic for the motorcycle Cannonball. So I go along on a big bike, a touring Harley, and I just follow everybody, and I stop and help where I can. I'll push start a bike. I'll hold a wrench. I'll take care of you if you got a boo-boo. And I ride to the beginning. I ride home at the end. So in about 3 weeks, I put on around 7,000 miles.
Holy cow, that is a lot of time. And I can imagine for some of the people that are riding on some of the more vintage motorcycles, that's going to be really hard on the butt.
Oh my goodness.
I can imagine.
I feel sorry for them
hard
sometimes.
Seats.
Yeah, I never have anything to complain about. They'll come up to me when it's raining or something and, are you doing okay? And I'm like, don't worry about me. You guys, you got nothing protecting you. I got a big bike here with heated handle grips. Don't, sorry.
Well, something interesting that I learned about you and your husband is that y'all are one of the only couples ever to be inducted, I guess, as a couple into the Sturgis Motorcycle Hall of Fame. Did I get that right?
Actually, we weren't. We were not
as a couple?
inducted
Not
as a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, the only ones that were inducted into the Motorcycle Hall of Fame, the only couple who has been inducted into the Sturgis Motorcycle Hall of Fame for separate reasons. So we were inducted at very different times for very different reasons. There have been couples who have been inducted together for their efforts, their joint efforts. But yeah, it must be true. I've got a tattoo.
You have proof. Well, so what was it? Tell us what it was that was the basis for your induction in the Hall of Fame. That's super, super cool.
Well, I think it mostly had to do with the fact that I created accident scene management and have created the world's largest and most recognized motorcycle trauma training organization. We've trained over 40,000 students, have instructors in 32 states and 5 countries. So that has been a really big feather in my cap, I would say. But I've also done a lot of other things through the years, including supporting the Motorcycle Cannonball and going. I was the first female road captain on Tommy Thompson's governor's tours that he did. And I do a lot with women in motorcycling, support them in a lot of ways, do a lot of inspirational talks for women. And so, yeah, I think it's just everything all together.
Yeah. What a storied and fun career you've had in this. And I know that
Can I show you my bike?
Oh my gosh, I would love for you to. Well, I can tell that are you at your home?
I am in our garage
gosh,
at our
that's
house.
Awesome. Yeah, let's take a look at what you got going on there.
So this is where we spend a bit of our time hanging out with the bikes, and I'm going to tell you about a couple of them. There's one right here.
Is that a project going on right there?
Yeah, that's the current project. That's a 1948 panhead.
Holy cow. And that's beautiful.
Yep. Yeah, so that's my husband's bike, and he takes it apart every year and puts it back together. So
what's the story on that one? How long have you guys had that? How long have you had the panhead?
That one since 2010. I just have to figure out which direction I'm moving here. Now there's my Cannonball bike.
Right on.
So it says rescue on it, and I'm actually having some strobes installed on it in the very near future.
So my screen's a little bit far away from me, and I can't see exactly what we're looking at. What's your daily rider there? What was that?
Oh, my daily rider. It is. It's a ultra limited. So it is a full bagger.
Nice.
So, ultra limited. So a lot of people think I had it lowered because I'm only 5'1", but I don't really like to lower my bikes because it changes the suspension. So I didn't have it lowered. I instead
got your legs lengthened.
I wear stilettos. Yeah. So instead, I put a low seat on is what I do. So there's an Indian. That's my husband's daily rider. So that's his Dark Horse Indian Springfield.
Nice.
So,
love it.
Yep. So
I'm
has
so
a lot of fun
jealous
with that.
of your garage. Look at this. It's like,
I know, you got to come visit me. Next time you're in Milwaukee, you got to come out here. So
it's like a toy store.
It is. And I'm going to show you a bike that was featured in Easy Riders with their first edition when they came back with their magazine last December. So this bike's name is Trigger. I won't say it's my favorite, but it might be.
Right.
I don't think you're supposed to play favorites. But
yeah, don't say
anyway,
that in front of the rest of the children or you're going to get in trouble.
It's got a real horsetail on it.
I see.
So it has...
Oh my God, that's awesome.
The bike's name is Trigger. So Trigger has Indian Larry bike parts, and this is my Spitfire paint job.
Man, oh man. So do you guys do
Indian Larry rotors on the front?
Do you guys do most of the work yourself, or do you? I know you may not do the painting, but do y'all do most of the mechanical?
We do the mechanical. Yeah. We'll take it in if there's something we can't figure out, but most of the time, we've got a pretty well stocked garage here. So
I can see that.
So we do pretty good. So now I'm going to show you my latest, sweetest baby. Okay.
Okay.
I have been jonesing for years for a knucklehead. I wanted a knucklehead motorcycle. To me, that is the sexiest bike out there. So I found one, and don't have a name for it yet. I'm working on it. What am I doing here? I have to figure. Oh, there we go. There she is.
And what year did you say that was?
This is a 41.
Holy cow! Where'd you find it?
And in Alabama.
Is it a good story? Did you find it in a barn or?
It was at a place called HD Sales. It was a out in the country, some shop, mom and pop shop.
Did they know what they had?
Anyway, it needed some help, and that's how you can afford to get one. So it took a year to get it fixed up. But I had this custom paint job done to it. And the way this works is that it starts out with a normal sinus rhythm going into what's called VTAC. Then it flatlines, goes up onto the tank, transforms into a phoenix, which is considered rebirth.
Wow.
And then it comes out of that and goes back into VTAC and normal sinus rhythm. Now, isn't that the way we ride?
Yes.
That's the way we ride, so that's why I had on the side here, ride hard. And then on the other side, when you go through rebirth and you end up coming out of it, it says, don't die.
That is awesome.
Ride hard, don't die, enjoy the ride. And just to make sure everybody knew it was my bike, it says Nurse Knuckle.
Right on. Oh my goodness. I love it.
And has a medical caduceus with gold leaf. So anyway, it's a kickstart and electric start. So it's just a really, really fun bike. And
did that come with electric start originally or did? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's not original at all. It has a lot of things that have been done to it, but it is a hardtail frame. So, not something that I want to do a lot of distance on, but it has the springs on the seat so that I've got a little bit of spring there. I'm not totally trashing my back. So, but yeah, so it's a beauty.
That is
Did
really
some fun
amazing
stuff to it, but yeah, I feel very lucky.
And what was your very first motorcycle that you had?
A 1979 Sportster, Harley Sportster. So, and that one I found, it had been sitting in somebody's yard for 7 years. They bought it, put a few miles on it, only had 7,000 miles on it, but they had just kind of left it in Wisconsin in their yard where it got snowed on and everything, so it was kind of rusty. It wasn't very old. It was 1987 when I bought my first bike. And it was in 1979. So at that point, 8 years old.
Yeah, so it was pretty new.
Yeah, so the only problem with it is that the tires were rotted out and the battery was dead. And I had a credit card that had a $2,000 limit. Credit cards were brand new. They were something that most people hadn't even heard of. But because I was a nurse and working, they were pitching this to me and said, hey, we'll give you this credit card that has a $2,000 limit and you can just go out and buy stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay. So
free money.
The bike was $1,600 and I had $400 left. And that back then would buy you 2 tires and a battery. So I bought the bike.
Oh, that's perfect. You said you got your first bike in 1987, but when did you start riding? Did you ride before that or did you start riding in 87?
I was a passenger before that. Yeah, passenger. Like a lot of women, I think that's a lot of our stories is we started out as a passenger on somebody's bike and then just really loved the bike, so ended up breaking up with a boyfriend and then really missed the bike.
Yeah. So it's, everybody's riding tail's a little bit different. I came from a family that really did not encourage, motorcycle riding and, had some, friends and family who had tragic bike accidents. And so I was discouraged as a kid from riding and got into it, kind of in college when I could, not have family scrutiny about, whether I was riding or not. And everybody has a real different path to get to riding bikes, but it certainly does become a way of life for you, doesn't it?
It does. And the family component of mine, I did not come from a family of motorcyclists at all. My brother had ridden briefly when he was in college, but my mom cried when I bought a motorcycle. She thought I was on had a death wish or something. She was like, no.
Same here.
Yeah, but then she ended up being really proud of me. So,
yeah. Well, she should be. You've done a lot.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to wrap pretty soon, but I do want to just get a last couple questions in. What is the best way for people to sign up for the classes for accident scene management?
The best way to see our whole list of classes, what's available, we actually have a map that will show you markers of where the classes are, which is helpful. So the best thing to do is go to roadguardians.org and click on classes, and you'll get to see the whole list.
Perfect. Well, Vicki Sanfilippo, we are so glad and honored to have had you here today. I'm Chris Klotz, and this is the Motorcycle Hang Time podcast from the Stevenson Klotz Injury Law Firm in Pensacola and offices in Mobile. Thank you so much for coming out and visiting with us today and telling us a little bit about the very, very valuable thing that you do for everybody that's out there that's a rider. Thank you, Vicki.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
All righty. Talk to you soon, and everybody out there.
Okay.
We will see you next time on our next episode. We got a very special guest coming up, and thank you for watching, and we'll get in touch with you soon.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Motorcycle Hang Time with Chris Klotz. Go to StevensonKlotz.com to get more information about motorcycle safety issues and motorcycle law. Please leave us a rating and a review whenever you listen to your podcast. We invite you to spend time with us on our next episode.